It was at this moment that he knew.
He bucked up.
I was reading your article that you did with the New York Times.
Ooh.
Yeah, shout out.
New York Times Student Journalism Institute, because I don't want the New York Times to be like Caitlyn. Come correct.
I really hope they listen to my podcast and sue you from it. No, but I was reading that, and you have a very unique voice, and it's kind of like a hopeful, like the way you write, at least in that article. And we went to college together, so I know you're writing a little bit. It's hopeful, but it's personal too. Like,
Yeah.
do you want to give like a little backstory to that article?
So for that program, it was the New York Times Student Journalism Institute. We had 2 weeks to be with the New York Times. 1 week was like training, mentorship. We got a lot of guidance on the stories we wanted to work on. I was really interested in the Bronx housing court, just because I have a lot of personal experience with it. One of my aunts actually has a lot of ties to it, and I've had to, out of just like care and noticing the abuse that this system puts on people in the Bronx, I would have to step in and like be there for my aunt. And it was crazy to witness like so much disregard for people that are like trying hard. They're just trying to survive. People that would come in with their children, people talking about like they're missing hours from work and the judges are taking forever, and like all these different things. But like it's not just the judge's fault. And like through that article that I did with the New York Times, I was able to interview a judge and get more of their perspectives and hear about what they need and what more they want to see as well. So it was great to have that insight, because I've only been from the side of like a tenant. And so that in that story, I was able to focus on a gentleman and a mother and a son. It was an older man who was basically in and out of the Bronx housing court.
Harold, what was his last name?
I can't remember. My memory is not good.
I understand.
I'm sorry.
I know his name's Harold. That's
It is Harold. And I have a picture of him at home, and it's so special to me. But
how did you meet him?
I was just in the Bronx housing. Being like a reporter, a journalist, just means like sitting around and like hoping someone talks to you. And he was willing to talk, and I was willing to listen. So that's how that connection happened. And he was very passionate about getting his story out, because he felt the disrespect was real. And I was like, yes, sir.
Yeah, he was the one that his case had been going on for 12 years?
Yes, and this man was like on top of all his paperwork, like all the bullshit that they gave him. He was prepared for it, thankfully. But like, had he not been, like, they would have caught his ass slipping a long ass time ago. But he's being persistent. He's like, I'm not leaving. And so that's been a battle that he's been fighting for a really long time. And even when I finished reporting the story, it was like an ongoing thing. So it's really frustrating. And the story of the mother and the child is also like that. And it was just
Melanie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll share the article when I release the episode. Of
Gracias.
course. But it is really, it's sad. And it shows
my little happy dance.
But it shows the brokenness in the system, and how like they don't have nothing is really figured out. Like they had to cut the child care because they didn't have enough funding. So like
it's rough, and like it comes at the expense of like a lot of these families. Like they depend on so many of these resources, and just the effort of trying to battle through the struggle and like also pay through the struggle that they're like supposedly behind on, or whatever the problem may be. Like it's rough to do that simultaneously. So they're just like barely ever to get the chance to progress. And so that's why it's frustrating. And I'm like, come on, like this system has to be able to work better than this.
And you said you had an interest through your aunt. That's how you...
Yeah.
That you got into it. Was there... When you were... Did you know that going in that this was the article that you wanted to write?
Yes, but it's risky because you never know if people are actually going to talk to you. So I was there for a little while, and it was not looking hopeful. Like I would just talk to people about their story, and they would just like leave or something before I got the chance to express like interest in writing about them or learning more. But this, like, I'm very patient now. Pero that one I was willing to like sit out, because I was like, there's something here. Like there must be. There always is.
Yeah.
So I waited it out, and that's where I found Harold first, and then I went back. Actually, Melanie was one of the people that I saw first, but she wasn't really willing to willing to talk at first, and then her son was the one who was like saying all these things that were just incredible. Like, I hate, like, not necessarily like he hates being here, but like I spend so much time here. Like, do you remember when you picked me up from school and I'd be here? And so like that's how the conversation started.
Did you ever read the book Room about the kid locked? Did you ever see the movie?
Tampoco.
It's
How
it's
old or new is this?
it's pretty maybe 10 years, and it's a book from the perspective of a child who's been a captive his whole life in the basement of a
Ooh.
guy's
I need to
house,
see this.
and the whole book is in his perspective, so it's really dark things are happening, but he's seeing it in a childlike wonder. And that's how I felt when I was reading your article. It's especially in the short quotes that you use from him. He sees this kind of dark injustice as it is, but in this childlike wonder
Yeah.
still.
It's rough. It's rough because like when he would express that, the mom would like hear that but feel it in a different way, and I could tell. But it's really incredible how he experienced it.
That was great that you were able to highlight there.
Yeah, I mean his quotes were they really resonated.
So you said you talked to the judges too. I was do you know the author Malcolm Gladwell at all?
Tampoco. I'm like
No problem.
I live under a rock.
I talk about him too much, but because I've been reading all
you
his
have to
books.
like we need to like if I had a little notepad I'd be like Room, watch Room. who Malcolm what?
Malcolm Gladwell. But he was talking about this study that Stanford did about they went into the court system
Oh, no.
and they were talking about they had computers judge cases and judges judge cases.
Oh.
And then they saw what was better, and they actually
It was an experiment?
It was an experiment,
Okay,
and
thank
it showed statistically that the computers were actually more reliable and nicer to people, and that it was this thing that these judges are hardened by the system that they're in. I don't know. Do you, being in there, do you see that, or do you think the judges are?
I mean, part of it can be so much. Like, it can be a lack of resources. It can be a lack of time to evaluate the actual situation, because it's always easy for, like, the landlord to have the upper hand, usually. And so, like, when the tenants are always in a position of weakness and the judge may be lacking on resources, and, like, I'm just trying to accept both sides. Like, it is true that the system can be very hard, but there's also that reality that they're not getting the time that they need. Even like the people that are defending these tenants that are trying to get them the help that they need, they don't have the time necessary to give these cases the proper attention to be fought properly, because maybe there could be justice, but there doesn't seem to be enough resources and enough desire to get the people in the weaker position the support that they need. Like, we need to like balance things out a little more. Yeah,
you said that the tenants don't have that the people who own the landlords are the ones with the power.
Usually.
Is that a resource thing, or does the system just look more in favor to them?
I mean, if this is like their career, if this is like what they're in the industry for, they probably maybe even have their own legal team. The landlords may not even be there. Sometimes it's just like tenants seeking like damages, like to be cleaned, like fixed in their apartments, and they're not getting done. And there's just like that disconnect, because there's like that always like there's a legal team in the middle, and these tenants may not even know how to communicate with one. Maybe they're just getting official letters in communication. So it's always like they have that type of upper hand where like the weaker group doesn't have the resources or the knowledge to properly handle the situation in their favor.